Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The dragon. A real-life dragon was recently found in Australia. This incredible prehistoric creature lived 105 million years ago and was truly a giant of the sky. Its wingspan was an impressive 23 feet, meaning it likely blocked out the sun as it soared over the jungles and wastelands below. Tim Richards, with the University of Queensland, said this monster is the closest thing to a real dragon that's ever lived. It may not have shot fire out of its mouth or guarded a mighty treasure, but it did look exactly like a dragon. It was a flying reptile known as a pterosaur, with huge wings, mean eyes, and a massive jaw filled with sharp teeth. To give you an idea of just how big its wingspan was, the creature could have stood on the roof of a school bus, and its wings would have covered the whole thing. Its skull alone was 3 feet long, with roughly 40 teeth in its mouth like spear points. The monstrous flying creature of death hunted and fished during the Cretaceous period. Its main source of food was likely in the Eromanga Inland Sea that once covered much of eastern Australia. Tim Richards says this was not an animal designed to eat broccoli, but would have been a very fearsome thing to behold. Out of the 200 different species of pterosaur, the dragon was almost certainly one of the most impressive. The team that discovered the reptile named it Sapungaka Shawi, which translates from the Wanamara Nation language to spearmouth. Seems pretty fitting. And now for an incredible find, but first it's shout-out time. I want to say a big thank you to Jeremy Ailing and Dare Buckeye Tribe for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like these, and let me know your favorite prehistoric creature in the comments. Number 9. The Notosaur. By far one of the creepiest and coolest dinosaur discoveries made in recent years is that of the Notosaur. Researchers didn't just discover a fossilized skeleton, they found a perfectly preserved dinosaur just as it would have looked when it was still alive. It's been hailed as the best preserved dinosaur body ever found. The creature has been dead for 110 million years, but you can still see the actual skin and armor of the animal. How is that even possible? Mine workers in Canada were drilling for crude oil when they saw big brown rocks that looked like ribs, but they had no idea it was a dinosaur. 6 years later, the dinosaur has been cleaned and preserved. Scientists said its skin, armor, and even its guts are still intact, making it a dinosaur mummy instead of a fossil. The Notosaur was an herbivore protected by a thick suit of plated armor. It weighed about 3,000 pounds and stretched 18 feet long. It spent most of its time in what is today Canada, probably wandering around living its best vegetarian life. The mummified version is so complete that it's only lost 500 pounds since it's died. To put that into perspective, it's better preserved than most Egyptian mummies. Number 8. The Battle Ax Dino. There was once a very strange dinosaur that wielded a battle axe on its tail. This mysterious creature is a newly identified species of ankylosaur called Stegosaurus elengason, not to be confused with a stegosaurus. It was a relatively small dinosaur, close to the ground and with muscled, stubby legs. Its body was covered in spikes, and its tail was like a horrifying mix between a barbarian's club and a warrior's battle axe, hefty and thick with jagged points. Ankylosaurs are most famous today for being built like mobile tanks. These dinosaurs had a fantastic defense mechanism. They were covered in bony plates and spikes that made them very difficult to eat. Plus, most ankylosaurs had heavy clubs on their tails, monstrous weapons that could have easily shattered a kneecap if you got too close. This new species had a tail with 7 pairs of flat spikes that made it look like an Aztec battle axe. The almost complete skeleton was found in Chile and dates back to around 73 million years ago. And while these 7 pairs of blades might seem like overkill for a plant eater, it probably was very helpful for defending itself from predators. Researchers think that this poor guy got stuck in quicksand and just couldn't get out. Number 7. The creepiest dinosaur. Scientists believe they may have just discovered the creepiest dinosaur in the world. It's called the Heterodontosaur, and it lived roughly 200 million years before today. It wasn't a very big dinosaur. It was quite small, actually, So small it could have run across the feet of the biggest predators alive back in the day, and they likely wouldn't even have noticed. Scientists believe it was about 2 feet long, equipped with quills like a porcupine, and had a beak like a bird. But it wasn't a bird, and it wasn't a porcupine. And for some reason, it had giant fangs in its beak like those of a prehistoric hog. This was an amazing combination of a bunch of different creatures. Of course, the creepiest dinosaur in the world is a relative title. Some people might think this monstrosity was cute. Its name translates to different-toothed lizard, and nobody's really sure what it was related to. The heterodontosaur had so many bizarre parts that scientists can't agree where it belongs on the dinosaur family tree. What do you think? Cute or creepy? Let me know in the comments. If you think it's cute, what do you think the creepiest dinosaur is? Number 6. Prehistoric South Pole. Paleontologists working in Antarctica recently came across the fossilized remains of a prehistoric reptile. This reptile was about the size of an iguana and lived near the South Pole when the world was a very different place. 250 million years ago, Antarctica was not covered in snow and ice. Instead, it had forests and rivers and almost never even reached freezing temperatures. It was also teeming with various life forms, some creepy and more terrifying than others. The prehistoric reptile just found by paleontologists has been dubbed the Antarctic King. Its real name is Antarctenax shackletoni, named after famous explorer Ernest Shackleton. This creature was a carnivore, and it likely hunted gigantic bugs, and it also feasted on ancient relatives of mammals and amphibians. But here's where things get really interesting. Researchers initially thought the dinosaur they would find in Antarctica would be similar to those that have been found in South Africa. This is because the land masses were connected 250 million years ago. What scientists found instead is that Antarctica's wildlife was very unique and slightly bizarre compared to the rest of the world. It was strange in the same way the animals of Australia are weird compared to animals everywhere else. This came as an even bigger surprise because 2 million years before the Antarctic King lived, there was a devastating extinction event. Volcanic eruptions killed about 90% of all living beings. This was what allowed dinosaurs to start taking over the Earth when the planet recovered. Paleontologists didn't realize they would find such a thriving ecosystem in Antarctica. Never mind one ruled over by a modestly sized reptile monster. Number 5. Peruvian Desert Sea Monster. Something terrifying was recently found in the Peruvian desert. Turns out, sea monsters were real. Paleontologists discovered the fossilized remains of a prehistoric whale that lived 36 million years ago. It was such a fearsome beast that scientists are calling it a real sea monster. The creature is a Peruvian Basilosaurus. It was excavated from the desert over 200 miles from the capital of Lima. The desert is a barren wasteland right now, but was once a shallow sea with a rich diversity of creatures. One of the most monstrous of all the creatures was the Basilosaurus, an apex predator which feasted on anything that swam close to it. The sea monster grew to at least 55 feet long and had powerful teeth, its jaws capable of ripping apart the biggest sharks and swallowing whole schools of sardines. Although the Basilosaurus was a type of cetacean, just like whales, it was significantly different from other prehistoric whale species. This was mainly because of its size and its ridiculously huge teeth. It grew so large that it dominated the food chain at a time when the Peruvian Sea was very warm. It evolved about 10 million years after the extinction of the dinosaurs from land animals. Nobody knows what this thing was before it became a whale. It had 4 legs and lived on land and was likely a fearsome predator. Then something happened. Its legs turned into flippers, and suddenly it was one of the greatest marine predators that ever lived. Number 4. Dino Mummy Skin. The ancient body of a duck-billed dinosaur was discovered entombed in North Dakota. But this dinosaur wasn't like anything you would expect from most fossilized dinosaurs. It wasn't just dusty bones preserved in rock, it still had some of its skin. Paleontologists were able to reveal part of its forelimb, a chunk of its tail, and its foot from within the stone casing of the specimen. And it was on these body parts that researchers found preserved flesh, making this dinosaur more of a mummy than a fossil. Scientists are now calling it a fossil mummy, and they say it lived between 67 and 66 million years ago. An investigation of the remains has revealed some other ghoulish facts about the dinosaur mummy. It died somewhere close to water, then was scavenged by carrion feeders. Researchers found bite marks all over the bones and skin, showing that it had been nibbled on by a hungry carnivore. It may have been an ancient crocodile or even a young T-Rex, or perhaps a smaller Dakota raptor. But how in the world did the dinosaur's skin remain preserved for millions of years? That's the big question boggling scientists. Dr. Drumheller from the University of Tennessee believes it had to do with tiny scavengers burying themselves inside the duck-billed dino's carcass. These small scavengers opened pathways under the skin for liquids and gases to come out from the body. This bloated the skin, kind of like blowing air into a limp balloon. The skin then dried out and it became preserved along with the bones. Number 3. Cave dinosaurs in France. Researchers found prehistoric dinosaur tracks on the ceiling in a mysterious French cave. It's pretty unusual to come across dinosaur remains underground, but it's even more bizarre when they belonged to one of the biggest creatures that ever walked our planet. 1,600 feet beneath the surface of France, crisscrossing the top of a cavern, there are the footprints of a titanosaur. The discovery was made in Castlebouc Cave by paleontologist Jean-David Moreau from the University of Bourgogne. He and a team of researchers crawled through the narrow and claustrophobic passageways underground to reach the cavern with the dinosaur footprints. And there, they came across some of the first traces of huge herbivore dinosaurs preserved in a natural cavity. But how in the world did one of the biggest dinosaurs on Earth leave footprints 100 stories underground? It's all because of the way our planet shifts. 160 million years ago, when the titanosaur was still alive, the roof of the cave was the surface of the ground. In fact, it was the surface of a clay embankment jutting out against an inland sea. The preposterously large dinosaur, which weighed as much as 75 tons, and grew 122 feet long, stepped in some mud, and its tracks were then preserved in the muck. Over the following millions of years, the area was buried under sediment. The land rose, the sea level dropped, and erosion carved a limestone cave. One of the cave passages happened to open directly underneath where the dinosaur first walked through the mud and left its impressions. What the paleontologists were seeing were the undersides of the footprints, like looking up through a glass floor. Number 2. Dino ticks. 99 million years ago, dinosaurs were bothered by the same annoying parasites that bother us today. A creepy prehistoric bug was recently found within a chunk of Burmese amber, preserved for millions of years. It was once responsible for sucking the blood of a dinosaur. Inside the amber, the preserved parasite can be seen clinging to an ancient feather. This crafty little critter leapt out of the grass and onto a theropod dinosaur's feathers. Then the feather fell off, was encased in amber, and the bug has been preserved ever since. This was a tick, the same creepy, disease-carrying miniature monstrosities that plague our pets. They have been around since the days of the dinosaurs and have always had an insatiable hunger for blood. The pieces of amber have proven to be the first direct evidence of ancient ticks sucking dino blood. This is according to researchers at Oxford University Museum of Natural History in the UK. Insects, especially tiny ones like ticks, don't appear frequently in the fossil records. Having one preserved in amber is entirely unique. Having one clutching a feather is a paleontologist's dream. We now know that carnivores and sea monsters weren't the only creepy things in prehistoric times. There were also parasites and bloodsuckers. Number 1. The scary lobster. 480 million years ago, there was an arthropod unlike any other. It's called the anomalocaridid, and it was once one of the biggest creatures on the planet. It was about 7 feet long, which may not seem like that much now, but back then, it was huge. It was one of the biggest arthropods living in the world's prehistoric oceans, if not the biggest. It was also absolutely freaky looking. Scientists say the anomalocaridid had traits of both a giant squid and a lobster, and would have looked like a weird hybrid of both. Even stranger is that the squid lobster was likely the grandfather of every arthropod alive today, including centipedes, spiders, crabs, and even butterflies. Paleontologists have found several fossils of these underwater giants, but the one they just dug out of the Morocco desert is by far the most interesting. The previously discovered fossils were all squished flat and two-dimensional, but this one was raised, giving scientists a 3D glimpse at its anatomy. They were able to see its long, trunk-like appendages, and the creature also had weird flaps that it used to flounder over the sea floor like legs. Paleontologist Peter Van Roy believes the mysterious flaps could have been the predecessor to legs, the original prototype before any creature on Earth learned to walk. Thanks for watching! Which of these creepy prehistoric beasts is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye!